I think this is just sloppy. We have worked hard on a budget for the past couple of months. Our hearing we had last week, the mayor and council and staff had proposed a budget where we had reduced the millage rate from 5.7 mils to 5.45 or 5.5 mils. This budget tonight has been sent to us at the last minute. It was sent yesterday about 4:30, and I believe it was revised and sent again to us sometime this evening around maybe 4:30 or 5 o'clock again. As you can see, there are figures in this new proposed budget that have not been verified, that have not gotten the approval of staff, and I think that this is not fiduciary. I don't think the council is meeting their fiduciary duty by going forward with this budget and these figures tonight. Also would like to point out, however, I think Councilman Howard said he doesn't like to spend money just because we have to have a big bucket of money. Well, if you notice in the budget that's been proposed tonight, we're not actually cutting spending. We're cutting taxes. We're lowering taxes. And so I believe that we need to be fiscally conservative. If we're going to lower taxes, we need to cut our spending. We can't just keep spending where it is and say we're going to lower your property taxes so that we'll have something to campaign on come next election time. But most importantly, what I think is wrong with this budget is that I think it is improper. I believe that is deceitful. In 2001, the Georgia General Assembly passed what's known as the Georgia Uniform Accounting Chart, and those are the rules and regulations for accounting for local governments in the state of Georgia. If you have what's known as a material expense, you have to include that in your budget. We know right now we are in the middle of an LCI project. In fact, we are over budget with that LCI project. The LCI project is the streetscapes and the on-street parking on Wisteria and Oak Road and Clower Street. We just recently had to write a check out of our general fund, our savings account, for about $500,000 to help finance that LCI project. In addition to that $500,000, in the fiscal year 2013, we're going to incur another $427,000 to complete that LCI project. You heard Mayor Pro Tem Witz. He's not proposing we don't go forward with that. They're just not asking that it be put in the budget tonight. That is improper. You also heard at the last council session, we approved awarding the contract for repairs to our pavilion at Briscoe Park, $16,900. Again, you've heard Mayor Pro Tem Witz say that he just doesn't want to put that in tonight's budget. That is also improper, and I believe is not the accounting principle. I believe will subject the city to liability with the auditors and possibly the state of Georgia, knowing that we're going to incur those expenses in the fiscal year 2013, knowing that we're actually in the process of incurring those expenses. It's not projected possible future expenses. It's something we're working on right now. We've awarded a contract for the pavilion. We're in the process of bidding the contracts for the LCI project. We know we're going to have those expenses. So not to put them in our budget, to ignore them so that we can feel good about lowering people's taxes when we know we're going to have to turn around and pay those out of our savings account is not we are not meeting our fiduciary duty to our citizens. We want our citizens to have lower taxes. Of course, we all do. But we have to be responsible for the money we're spending. We do not have a $4.5 million reserve, as Mayor Pro Tem has previously stated. Currently, we have $2.5 million in our savings. 1.5 of that is from the SDS money. So we have a roughly 1.9 at the end of June. It may be down to $1.7 million reserve in our savings account. That's less than 25% of our operating budget. If something were to happen to this city, we could only operate for a short period of time with that type of reserve. If we were to have a natural disaster or anything like that, that would engulf our whole reserve. The SDS money, I don't believe, was ever intended to pay for an LCI project. The SDS money was awarded to the city from services we offer for planning, for public works, and for our parks department. It was not meant to help us fund a project that's been over budgeted for the past 7 years. So for all of those reasons, I cannot support tonight's budget.
Madam Mayor. May I have the floor?
I believe we've all had, well, sure.
First of all, the figures I'm using on the surplus are the mayor's figures, not mine. But I think we do have probably somewhere between 3.1 and 3.5 million dollars in our budget, or in our surplus. And again, let's not confuse the fact that we're going forward with the LCI in 2013 budget. We're going to have a surplus in 2012 of 1.4 to 1.5 million dollars. When next week, when we amend our 2012 budget, we will include the LCI project and the $16,900 project for the pavilion in our amended 2012 budget. So they will be accounted for. Those funds will be earmarked. They will be taken out of the 2012 surplus, and those funds will be earmarked to make sure that we have payments for those things. All that we're saying is that we are not going to tax the citizens for additional $500,000 in 2013. We have the reserves to do it. We will recap it. I'm just not taxing you for it. The reason that we can do this is because we're receiving $705,000 in additional revenue from the county for SDS 2013, and our tax digest was minimally affected this past year based on the work that was done by the Planning Commission and this council from 2009 through 2012. Has nothing to do with it. If we had dropped 7%, we would have had to do something else. That didn't happen. So I'm very comfortable with this. And as you remember, in 2010, I was the one that stood up here and told everyone we needed to raise taxes because we had a problem. I stood by that at the time. I also promised you all that when it became time that we could cut taxes, that we were going to do the same thing in reverse. We asked you to trust us so we can improve the economic development of the city, and we can improve the commercial tax base so that we can take some of the weight off the residents because of our increased commercial tax rate. We have increased our tax rate on our commercial property substantially, and that's why we can offer this. That's why our digest is staying the same. So regardless of what you hear from the mayor, the truth of the matter is we are going to cover the LCI. We have the money to cover the LCI. We'll handle that in the 2012 budget. We're just not going to make the homeowners and property owners of Snellville pay the $457,000, or better yet, $16,000, $16,900, very small amount of money. What was $16,900,000? And the insurance company gave us a check last year. We're going to charge the citizens $16,900,000 this year because it's in the surplus from last year? The only difference is the amount of money. The money was, this is not taxable funds. We had an accident at the pavilion. Insurance company paid us the money. We put it into our surplus account. It's sitting there. All we're going to do is take it out of there where we put it into our 2012 budget and pay the bill. Why would we want to charge our citizens property taxes on that $16,900 when it's already sitting there, having already been paid by the insurance company? This is really pretty simple stuff. All we're doing is using the funds we have available the way we need to use them and keeping our taxes at where they need to be. Why? Because if we get $705,000 additional from the county for SDS, does that mean we should spend it? I don't think so. Okay, I think that $705,000 is being credited to the city because of payments they've made in the past, and that should be credited back to the people who paid it in the past, the property owners. So for that reason, I ask my colleagues to approve this budget.
Mayor, if I could, please. I'm always amazed at the things that seem to be left out. And let's talk about the LCI. Yeah, we did write a check for $500,000 the other day. We sure did. No question about it. Well, the LCI project is one of those projects you ever had to have a rebate. In other words, you had to buy something and then send something in to get some money back. Well, we have in excess of $350,000 coming back, but we had to go ahead and pay for it first. Conveniently left out of the conversation. And from a simplicity standpoint, yes, I did make the statement a minute ago, and I make no bones about it. But from a pure math perspective, the budget that we're looking at right now, that I will support, if you look at two numbers, the total revenue number, $9,830,388, which means the taxpayers pay less money, and the expenditures $9,615,878. I don't care how you do math, if you do special math or fuzzy math or whatever you do, that is a number lower than $10,156,813. So yes, I'm proposing we spend less than what's on the table. Absolutely sit here doing it. But if you can tell me how that number of $9,615,000 is greater than $10,136,000, you've got my support. But I don't see it happening. So for that reason, I'll support the budget that Mayor Pro Tem Witz has put on the table as a good, fiscal responsible, conservative, taxpayer bonus, if you will, budget for those reasons.
Ms. Patton, can you come to the mic? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. For those of you here that may not know you, can you state your name and how you're employed?
I'm Sherry Patton. I'm the Personnel Director for the City of Snellville.
And have you had an opportunity to review the budget that we are going to take a vote on tonight that was presented by Mayor Pro Tem Witz?
I reviewed the one that came in yesterday. Yeah.
The budget that we had the first reading on that has appeared on the city website, did that accurately reflect a 1% raise
Yes.
for the employees?
It did.
Were there any employees other than the adjustments in the dispatch and the police department that received more than a 1% calculation?
There was 2 in the police department that did.
The numbers in the proposed budget tonight, will they cover a 1% raise in those positions that we read off?
No.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Burke, will you come forward for just a minute, please? Will you also state your name and your occupation for those that don't know?
I am Jan Burke. I'm the controller for the City of Snellville.
And we've been talking about LCI money. The city, I know you probably aren't prepared for this, so if you
That's
just want to
okay.
give us about numbers. The city, excuse me, we recently spent roughly, well, first let me ask you this. Do we have any LCI funds left in the SPLOST account?
No.
Okay. And so we recently spent $500,000 that came out of our general fund. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I think Councilman Howard just alluded to the fact that we are going to receive roughly, I think, $325,000 from the federal government for construction cost.
That is correct.
And so have you calculated that into the 426 balance?
That $390,000 will go back into the LCI fund, and that is earmarked to cover the construction cost for the project. What we have in the general fund is the burial of the utilities, which is an additional $427,000 that is not reflected in Mr. Witt's budget.
So are we getting that back from the federal government as far as you know?
No, we will get nothing back on that $427,000.
Is there anything you want to say?
Can I ask a question? Jan,
Mayor Pro Tem Witz, you've had 2 opportunities to speak.
This is a witness. You're
No,
bringing someone up here.
I'm not, this is my
No.
discussion. You've had 2 opportunities to speak, so under Robert's rules, I'm sorry. This is my,
I cannot support the budget that does not include the expenditures for the LCI fund, in the general fund, for the LCI project in the general fund, or the pavilion. Those are material expenses. They have to be budgeted. We obviously are going forward with both of these projects. That is a large amount that would, someone looking at our budget for next year, that would seriously alter their opinion of the city's finances if they saw, it might alter what they would choose to put money into the city or not, based on whether that was in there or not. It's a material misstatement of the budget. It is money we know we're going to spend.
do we have, are we going to have enough surplus in the 2012, fiscal year 2012 budget to cover the 427 and the 16,000?
I believe no. At the moment, we're at like 1.3 million surplus, and there's still a couple weeks of June left to go into these figures that have not made it through the accounting system yet. There are invoices out there, and there's a little bit of revenue out there that has not gotten into the general ledger yet. We received 1.5 million in SDS money, so we're already eating into that SDS money.
So the 1.3 million surplus that's showing in the fiscal year 2012 budget is the SDS, that SDS money is included in there.
That is correct.
So we've spent about $200,000 already of the SDS money.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Burke. With that, if no other council members have comments, we will call the question.
I have a question.
Okay.
We have here on the proposed budget, human resources as an example, 67,804 is the 2011-2012 budget. 69,075 is the 2012-2013 budget. If I add 1% to 67,804, I come up with 68,482, not 69,075. Every time I've added 1% to what's listed in your budget on the 2011-2012, I come up with a number that's less than the proposed, which tells me that the proposed is more than a 1% increase. I'd like an explanation.
Sherry Patton, HR Director, and I do the payroll. Last year when we got the 2% across the board, I believe, you all had suggested that part of it be used as merit pay, and we also wanted to be able to give an across the board because people have been working for like 4 years without a raise. So we came up with a scenario where based on where you came in, how many of the years you were here that we didn't get raises, you would get across the board as of July 1st. They were from anywhere from $500 to $1,000. Then whatever was left was used as merit increase pay based on your evaluations in October. So the numbers, you can't just add 1% on because it may be a little bit more because of the 1,000 and the people below got 500. But overall, the whole budget only went up the 2%, the whole salary budget. So if you take, and the way I came up with my figures, I took everybody's hourly rate as it sits on payroll today, multiplied it times 2,080 hours, which is 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. And that's the numbers that are in there. And we put 1% on that.
So the 2011-2012 budget numbers are incorrect, as listed here.
No.
Well, if you take 67,804 and add 1% to it, what you're telling me is they got more than 67,804.
I don't know how to explain it to you any differently.
Well, it's not in the budget. If you have an expense, it's got to be in the budget, so that says the employee got compensated more than is listed here.
That happened on all salary things. The only
It
ones
doesn't
that-
matter. We
the
don't
only
have a
ones that are
valid number.
showing are because it's a one person, one function, one person in the function.
But we still don't have a valid number to base it on.
You base
Because
it
if
on what
1% added to that number came up to 69,075, then 67,804 would have to be a bigger number.
People's hourly rate, I took it from people's hourly rate as it stands today, annualized it, and added 1%. And the reason for that is the raises were not given across the board last time. There was a schedule based on how many years of service you had. And I think Russell used, if I remember correctly, he had me do that first. We paid that out we put that in as of July 1, and whatever was left over, which was about $40,000, was used for merit raises in October. And not every employee got that. only the ones who were performing well above average.
But apparently that's not reflected here. Where is the money in the 2011-2012 budget?
I think,
I mean,
I think you're
you can
two
take and
different things.
annualize and do whatever, but the bottom line is you either spent 67,804 or you spent more than 67,804 on the salary if adding 1% gives you 69,075.
Yes, but you gotta remember that 40,000 had to be redistributed.
Where is it? Where is the $40,000?
In the 2012 budget, it was under general administration, reserved for employee
But in
raises.
April, it still showed in the budget.
Order, Councilman Emmanuel, I believe Ms. Patton has answered your question to the best of your ability. If you're not satisfied with your answer, you can take that into consideration, but she has
Call the
answered your
question,
question. Mayor Pro Tem Witch, you are out of order. We are going to take public comment on the question before it can be called. We're in a public hearing. If we have anyone that would like to say anything on the record, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Marcy Fair, 1749 Ridgedale Drive. I'm so confused, but I have two questions. First question is, what does our accounting firm recommend should be the amount of surplus?
Have to ask, we don't have an accounting firm, we have an auditor. You have to ask
Well,
our
our
You have to
auditor.
ask our auditor. I believe that the general principle is that you have a surplus between 20 or 25% in the state of Georgia.
Okay. My next question was, Mr. Witz, you said something about the Snellville Farmers Market and the police at $16,000.
What that is,
I believe that's for all of stat.
correct, it is.
Okay, because we don't pay
I didn't say it was for-
$16,000 for the.
I didn't say
Snellville
it was.
Farmers
That was the mayor's statement on mine.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that that's stat and all of their functions in the farmer's market. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, the public comment is closed. We will now call the question. All those in favor of approval of the amended budget for budget ordinance for fiscal year 2013 with the amendments as proposed by Mayor Pro Tem Witz, signify by raising your right hand. It's 4 in favor. All those opposed? 2 opposed. The motion carries 4-2. That concludes tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. With that, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. 6 in favor. All those opposed? 0 opposed. We are adjourned at 8:07. Thank you for coming out.